In today's video, we uncover the mysterious case of Christine Johnson until investigators uncover a hidden secret that changed everything. What really happened to Christine? Let's find out. Look closely at the woman in the black hat in this video, recorded in Los Angeles on February 15, 2003. Christine Johnson is 21 years old. Although it appears to be a normal trip to the mall for shopping, this video actually shows something very upsetting. A few hours after the video was taken, Christine was nowhere to be found. What she bought could help us figure out what happened to her.
Christine, please come home safe. I can't find peace in my life without you.
The police look at Christie's phone records. She called a helpline from Laurel Canyon in the Hollywood Hills just after 5 p.m. Someone who saw Christie says that a woman who looks like her pulled over to ask for directions to a house up the hill, but they can't find any other information about what happened to her. There was a story about Christie in the paper on February 20th, 5 days after she went missing. This is when a woman called the police. She told police that a guy had talked to her at the same mall a few weeks before. He told her that he was working on the next James Bond movie and that she should come in to try out.
He said you have to have a white shirt, you have to have a miniskirt, nylons, and stiletto heels.
And that happens to be everything that Christie purchased on February 15th.
Detectives are finding out about a serial predator who has been after women in Hollywood for over 10 years by finding stories of other women whose lives are eerily similar to each other.
Okay.
He was prepared for murder. He was prepared to have no one testify against him. It was critical that we find her as soon as possible.
We're talking about a predator, and somewhere along his life, he needed to be stopped.
Before we continue, make sure to hit that like button, subscribe for more true crime stories, and turn on the notification bell so you never miss an upload. I'd also love to know, where in the world are you watching from? Drop it in the comments below. Now back to the details. The year is 2001. Christine Johnson, who is 20 years old, just moved to Southern California from my small town of Saugatuck, Michigan. She wants to get her big break in Hollywood and is working hard to finish school. But it's hard for her to find work in the movie business, and she thinks about moving back home.
And in fact, it had gone so far that I had already contacted U-Haul and I was going to fly out to Los Angeles. She wanted to continue to give it a try. She was sincere in staying.
Christine tries again and again in Los Angeles. She gets a job as a production assistant on a new movie, but it's hard for her to find work in the business after that. Even though she starts working at a cell phone company, she doesn't give up on her dreams of working in Hollywood. February 15th, 2003, Saturday. Christine is talking to her mom, Terry, on the phone. Christine tells him that she is going to the mall that day. Her mom tells her to get herself a Valentine's Day present. They say goodbye, and she goes to the shops. February 17th, every day, Terry calls her daughter Christine to talk, but she hasn't called her in over 48 hours. She calls Christine's work and finds out that she didn't show up that morning because she can't reach her on her cell phone. Their daughter is always on time for work, and they are afraid that something bad has happened to her. They call the cops and say that the person is missing. No one knows where she is, and right away her family flies to Los Angeles.
I went to Christie's apartment and I put a poster on her wall to the entrance to her apartment with a big picture of Christie. I couldn't believe this was happening.
The police give the news about what's going on and set up a tip line. The search for Christie becomes more public as time goes on.
There were people that were going around to empty lots, handing out flyers, nailing them on telephone poles. Everybody fell in love with Christie.
When the police call Christie's credit card company, they find out that she bought a few things at the Westfield Century City Mall in Los Angeles on February 15th. They look through camera videos and find footage of her at the mall around 1 p.m. that same day. However, the footage doesn't show anything that could help them figure out what happened to her.
We have nothing. We have no leads whatsoever. Christie just dropped off the face of the earth.
Police are now looking at Christie's flatmate to see if she knows anything about where she went. It was February 15th, and Christie showed her flatmate a new outfit she bought on the way home from the mall. Christie then left for an important movie interview. At last, the police had an idea about where she was going, but her flatmate couldn't remember where the audition was. They look at what Christie said on her calls. She called a helpline from the Laurel Canyon area of the Hollywood Hills just after 5 p.m. on February 15th. A witness said that a woman who looked like Christy and was driving a white Miata stopped to ask for directions to a house up the hill before she vanished. Now that her parents know more about the day Christy disappeared, they are wondering if someone she knew might have tried to hurt her. They are doing everything they can to find their daughter.
I knew she was having problems with a boyfriend, and she had broken up with him. It was actually one of my first suspicions that he could have been involved.
Christy had called the police. Christy had had a domestic violence incident with her boyfriend.
Christy's ex-boyfriend is brought in by the police to be questioned. He says there was domestic abuse, but he says he has nothing to do with her disappearance.
He had said that he was extremely sorry. That was the one and only time that it had happened, that they were on their way back together again, that he loved her very much, and anything that he could do to help, he would.
He also says he wasn't in town the day she went missing, and several people back up his story. Police check his story and realize it's another dead end. February 20th, 2003, 5 days after Christy went missing. A woman named Susan Murphy calls the police.
I saw this article and this picture of this girl missing. I called the Santa Monica Police Department. When I started to explain my situation, they put me on hold and said, "We want you to speak to the lead detective on the case."
Susan read in the newspaper that Christy had disappeared after going to an audition for a movie. Susan tells the police about a guy she met not long ago in the hopes that it will help them find Christy. He also asked Susan to come to an audition. As she continues to tell her story, Detective Virginia Obenchain realizes it's their first big lead in the case.
He said, "It's very, very important that I wear black stilettos as high as possible, a black miniskirt, a white man's shirt."
And that happens to be everything that Christy purchased on February 15th.
The news didn't talk about the things Christy bought at the mall, but Susan thought the man she met weeks before might have something to do with her disappearance as soon as she read it.
My heart sank. I thought, could it possibly be the same person?
As soon as Susan tells the cops that she thinks she met the same man, they ask her to remember everything she could about him. She helps make a composite sketch of what he looks like, which is shown on TV all over the country.
Santa Monica Police Department is seeking the assistance of the public to identify and locate the individual depicted in this composite drawing.
February 24th, 9 days after Christy went missing. Her car was found in a hotel's valet parking lot. The police told Christy's parents right away, and they were scared.
The thoughts went through my mind. They're going to find Christy in the trunk. They're going to find blood. They're going to find... I had no idea what they would find.
But the only thing they find in the car is Christy's cell phone. The valet told the cops that the car was brought in by a man on February 16th, the day after she died.
Every bit of evidence that we were being told kept pointing towards something had gone wrong. Something was drastically wrong.
It was critical that we find her as soon as possible.
February 27th, 12 days after Christy went missing. People haven't seen her since then, but her family won't give up. One vigil is held in Los Angeles in honor of Christy, and the other is held in Michigan.
Today is Christy's 22nd birthday. Happy birthday, Christy. Please come home safe. I can't find peace in my life without you.
As word gets out, along with the picture that Susan Murphy helped make, other women come forward with similar stories in the hopes that they can help find Christy. Liz Bazzini met a man at a restaurant in 1991, 12 years before she went missing. He told her about a job opening in a new James Bond movie. While they were sitting at the bar together, Elizabeth saw right away that something wasn't right. She saw white powder on top of her drink when she looked at it. She quickly called the restaurant boss while she was in the bathroom.
I said, "This man is trying to drug me. Please call the police immediately. Please watch him. Make sure he doesn't leave."
She came up with a plan and went back to the bar to try to hold him up until the cops arrived. She asked him what the white powder was as they talked some more. He said it was sugar. Elizabeth tried to trade drinks with him by telling him he could have hers instead.
He looked at me kind of oddly and I said, "What's wrong? You can drink the drink." I said, "I don't like sugar." And that's when he excused himself and he ran out of there and he never came back.
Before the police came, the man ran away. But when Elizabeth hears about what happened to Christy more than 10 years later, she thinks it was the same man. Christine Klugian is one of the women who have told the police stories that sound a lot like hers. She says that in 1989, she met a man who said his name was John Maroney. After a few weeks of talking, he asked her to go on a date.
He said, "I'll pick you up in a limousine, we'll have dinner, and there's a big industry party," because he said that he was a music executive.
The man told her that the party would be in a hotel room and that he worked for Columbia Records. After dinner, they took a car back to the hotel. But when they got off the lift, Christine Klugian realized that the hall was empty. She was getting scared because she couldn't hear anything that sounded like a party nearby. Right then, the man led her to a hotel room that was empty, and she knew what he was up to the whole time.
He was trying to kiss me and I pushed him away and then he attacked me. He threw me on the bed. He tried to rip my clothes off.
The man tied her up with ropes that he pulled out from behind the bed, but she got away and ran out of the hotel room to get help. A man named Victor Paleologos was caught trying to. He agreed to a plea deal and was given probation for 3 years. After 14 years, cops are still desperately looking for Christy Johnson. After seeing the sketch of the man they're looking for, a parole officer calls in. Victor Paleologos, one of her parolees, looks like it, she says. The police get a warrant to search his home. Men wearing the same kind of clothes that Christy bought the day she went missing are shown on his computer. The suspect also told Susan Murphy to wear the same outfit to an interview. The trend is becoming more clear now. When investigators go to find Paleologos, they find that he is already in jail on separate charges for trying to steal a car.
We're looking for a missing person. Have you seen this young lady?
No. I've seen reports going on TV every day. I don't know her.
Tell us where she was the last time you saw her. Can you at least tell us that?
Last time I saw her, she was on TV.
Paleologos is still being questioned by detectives, but he won't say anything about Christy's departure. He also has an excuse for the day she disappeared.
Victor had shown up on a Saturday night at the IHOP restaurant, and he met a friend.
The friend he said he met confirmed that they did eat together. Even though Paleologos has a good excuse, he is still a major suspect in the case. Paleologos didn't go to IHOP until hours after Christy was last seen, around 5:30 p.m. on February 15th. He had a lot of time between those events to hurt her.
We were continuing to hope against hope that she was alive, that she was being held against her will someplace, and we just needed to identify the location so we could get there and save her life.
Police asked Susan Murphy to name the guy who approached her in a lineup 16 days after Christy went missing.
It's like going to a horror film, because you're seeing this person again. I immediately recognized him. I was like, that's the guy, for sure.
Susan figures out who Victor Paleologos is. There are still hopes that authorities will be able to find Christy.
My first question was, has he ever been arrested for murder before? And they said no. So then, of course, as a parent, I'm very hopeful. I'm thinking maybe this is somebody who's abducted my daughter, but he hasn't murdered her.
And everybody believed that there would be a happy ending to the story.
But Detective Obenchain gets a call that changes the whole case as she walks Susan out of the police station.
I remember overhearing Virginia talking on the phone. My heart dropped.
Folks on a walk found a dead body in a gorge not far from Hollywood Hills. When the police get there, they find the body of a young woman.
As I got down there and got closer and closer, I could see that there was a female. It was a white female. Her hands were tied behind her back. I could see that she was wearing a white blouse. And then that's when I went one step further to see if the tattoo was there. And it was. And that's when I concluded that this was, in fact, Christy Johnson.
Everyone's worst fears have come true after weeks of looking for Christy. The cops now have to break the sad news to her family.
He said that Christy was no longer with us. And I told him, I told him I appreciated the fact that they found Christy. And I said, treat her with dignity.
Her family is very sad. The autopsy reports show that Christy died from being strangled. Investigators have decided that she was killed. Now the cops have to find and punish the person who killed her. No progress has been made in figuring out who killed her, even though her body has been found.
There was no forensic evidence. We found no fiber. We didn't find any hair. There were no eyewitnesses.
There was nothing. We had found Christy, but the case was not anywhere close to being over.
Because Victor Paleologos has been linked to several crimes and has been identified in a picture, he can be charged with killing Christy. But since there is no DNA evidence, the prosecutors will have to make a case against him based on other information. The trial began on July 13, 2006. People who have been harmed by Paleologos in the past have told us about his history as a repeat predator. Their stories could help us catch him and punish him. She is called to the stand to tell her story. 4 years before Christy went missing, in 1999, a guy talked to Kathy at the same mall. He said his name was Brian and that he worked for Disney. He told her that she would be great in a new James Bond movie that he was making. Before she left, Kathy asked the man for a business card because she knew that Disney didn't make the James Bond films.
My agent called Brian at Disney's office and left him a voicemail about this. He called her back pretty quickly and said, "Tell your client not to go to this meeting. That was not me. I did not meet her at a mall. I did not give her a business card, and someone is lying to her."
Kathy got in touch with a New York police officer, her father. He also told her not to meet the man again.
So I had the information. I was already confirmed that this was a load of BS. The other thing that I had inside me was I couldn't let go that he was going to do something bad.
He hadn't done anything wrong yet, and the cops couldn't help Kathy. She knew the man might be dangerous, but she went anyway to try to stop him from hurting someone else. For safety's sake, she brought a stuntman friend with her, but the man who invited her never showed up.
Till this day, I will never forgive myself for not having my stuntman friend lie down in the back seat of the car. That was the end of my story. But I imagine he was waiting from whatever place, from whatever home with his binoculars or whatever it was, saw that I had a man with me in the car, and that was the end of that.
Even though Kathy didn't get to stop him herself in 1999, she knew it was the same man who talked to her when she saw Victor Paleologos' picture on TV 4 years later in connection with Christie's case. She could speak to fight for justice. Heather Marr, another victim, tells the court about the time in 1998 when Paleologos tried to He was caught and said he was sorry. He was freed on parole on January 20th, 2003, less than a month before Christy went missing. He had been in prison for 3 years and 5 months. In the 4 days after he got out on parole, he went after Susan Murphy. She stands up to witness against Paleologos and faces him again to help Christy's family move on with their lives.
I truly believed I was staring into the face of evil. Anyone who's in the court will tell you, my voice, I was shaking. And then looking at her family, that broke my heart. And I kept thinking about, what if that was my dad sitting out there? You never get over something like this. There's an innocence that is absolutely gone.
January 24th, 2003. She says she was at the Century City Mall, which is also where Christy was a few hours before she disappeared. A man came up to Susan and said his name was Victor Thomas.
He said, I know this sounds ridiculous, but I'm a director of photography and we're casting for the new James Bond movie. And he said, there's a certain look we're going for and you'd be great for this. It'd be perfect. He started naming out a bunch of legitimate directors and photographers and costume designers. It seemed plausible.
The man asked Susan to come to a test the next day. He seemed to know a lot about the business, but she thought there was something off about his offer. Susan called the Screen Actors Guild after she left to find out if there was a new James Bond movie being made. They told her there wasn't. There was no way she could be sure the man wasn't telling the truth, and she had no idea what he planned to do if they met again. But she chose to go anyway in the hopes of stopping him.
I'm on to something here. Something's going on. I'm going to show up tomorrow. I'm fully aware that I'll probably be thrown into a van or something, but I'm going to be there.
Susan went to meet the man again the next day with mace and a camera. Her boyfriend Tony stayed in the car and watched from inside. As they talked, he asked her if she wanted to get a drink across the street before the interview. The building he pointed to, though, looked like it was empty.
I said, well, first of all, I'm not going anywhere with you. I need some identification. And he said, oh, I don't have any identification. And at that point, I said, well, maybe this will help you find it.
Susan showed her man where the car was by pointing. When the man saw that she wasn't alone, he changed his behavior right away.
When Victor saw Tony, because Tony's a big guy, he's a second-degree black belt, Victor was like, you know what, you are so not right for this part at all, and I'm done.
While the man was running away, Susan tried to stop him so he wouldn't hurt anyone else. Tony and she got in the car and chased after him. He was quickly found hiding in the trees around the corner.
Then Tony stops the car, he gets out and he starts frisking him. I could see this guy was like practically in tears, but then the guy broke free, and then he ran through traffic on Santa Monica Boulevard.
Susan wasn't hurt, but she thought the man might try to trick another young woman. She had no idea what he could do. When he met her, he didn't do anything wrong, so the cops couldn't do anything. After less than a month, Christy was last seen. Right now, Susan's story helps make it clear how Victor Paleologos behaved. 7 women bravely testified against him, facing the man who had been after them and has gotten away with crimes many times. Paleologos kept coming up with the same ideas. He told the women to buy the same clothes and used the promise of an interview that would make their careers possible to get them to fall for him. He took advantage of their hopes for their big break in Hollywood.
There was a complete lack of scientific evidence, but they did have a very strong circumstantial case. And what they had was the parade of women. One after one we testified. One after one we didn't know that there were the others.
When I looked at Christy's parents sitting in the back of the courtroom and her father gave me the thumbs up to keep going, it made me stronger and I wanted to fight for her. That could have been me.
I was very impressed by the courage of these prior victims to come forward. Their stories were powerful, and the similarities among all the victims and Christy were striking.
The stories of the women are very important for making a strong case when put together. But since they don't have any DNA proof, they're still not sure if it's enough to find him guilty.
I definitely think this is a very clear example of somebody who has abused our system over a long period of time.
It's not about a naive young female. It's about a repeat predator offender.
We're talking about an evil person. And somewhere along his life, he needed to be stopped. And unfortunately, Christy was the stopping point.
Victor Paleologos takes a plea deal to avoid the death sentence because there is more and more evidence against him. But after that, he makes a shocking choice. He asks the court in an 11-page letter to change his mind about pleading guilty.
I'm going to deny the motion, Mr. Paleologos. The law states very clearly a plea may not be withdrawn simply because the defendant has changed his mind.
Victor Paleologos was given a 25-year-to-life term on September 15, 2006, for the murder of Christine Johnson.
The reason that we're here is because of Mr. Paleologos. And there is a reason why this happened. Only God knows. And I can't find an answer for that.
Victor Paleologos has been allowed the freedom to let the evil in his life escalate, resulting in the heinous murder of Christy, my beloved young daughter, a beautiful young woman on the threshold of her life.
The women saw how Christy's story was similar to their own, and they were strong enough to come forward together. This helped them catch a serial predator in Hollywood who has been after young women for over 10 years. Even though they didn't know her, the women who helped put Christy's killer in jail show how much she meant to them.
It could have been me. And there was a part of me that felt very close to Christy because of that. Like, I never knew her, but a part of me feels like I do in some strange way.
They helped Christy's family get answers and peace, and they still remember her every day. And now, the women speak out for other women who have been assaulted or are survivors. They want people to know that telling the truth can make a big difference, and that every story can help the fight for justice.
I want women and victims and survivors of all genders to realize there's nothing to be ashamed of. You are not going to just be a victim for the rest of your life. What you can be is completely powerful.
Every night I go outside, and whether it's 10 degrees below zero or snowing, I go out and say, "Good night, Christy, I love you."
Thanks for watching. If this story caught your attention, don't forget to like the video, subscribe for more true crime content, and hit the notification bell so you never miss an update. Stay safe, and I'll see you in the next one.